You're a personal mic.
There we go.
We got that just in time.
Now there's a little too much.
Now they can hear us and,
Yeah. Yep.
okay. Welcome this morning to our commission meeting. We'd like to start with a prayer, reading, or a thought, and a pledge of allegiance, and we're looking for individuals, volunteers who would like to participate with us. Are there anybody out there in the audience that would like to participate in either one of those two? Prayer? Okay, thank you, Ralph. Anybody else for the pledge? Well, we got two up there. Well, go ahead, Richard. Okay, thank you. Ralph?
Thy blessings would be upon those who are making the decisions in this meeting at this time, that they'll be guided and directed to make those decisions which are best for our community at large. We're grateful for those who put their lives on the line in defending our community, our police agencies and sheriff's office and others whose service and sacrifice is so appreciated. And these blessings we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I have had, before we kind of go through our agenda and start our agenda, I've had a number of individuals ask me about the process of the agenda and how it is built and how it happens. And so I thought I'd take just a second and talk about the agenda. It's probably the only process that I know of. There may be another one. It's the only process that I know of in which one commissioner can do something, and that is put something on the agenda. So most of the time it takes two commissioners, but in this case it only takes one. And so usually how the agenda works on the online portion of it, or I should say on the electronic version of it, is that departments, department heads, commissioners, whoever will submit and say, here we have, this needs to go onto the agenda, and then from there, the commissioners can look at it on an individual basis and click accept, in which it then goes onto the agenda. The organizing of the agenda is done by the commission chair in the way of consent and or on regular agenda, and that's really what I do when I look down through the items that are on there. First off, I have Renee, and she just kind of organizes them first, and then I'll take a peek at them and say, why don't we move that over here, or why don't we adjust this way, either on consent or on regular agenda. And then from there, it comes as a notice document that comes out on Friday. So that's kind of the real skinny on the agenda and how the agendas are built. And the reason why I was asked that question was because some people are saying, well, how do I want to put something on the agenda? And I said, you can't put something on the agenda. It has to be one of the commissioners that put it on the agenda. You can submit something if you'd like, but it can't go on the agenda unless a commissioner actually puts it on. So with that, we will move to our county employee of the month. And our county employee of the month for June is Jeff Robinson. Come on up, Jeff.
You can stay right there for a
Stay
second.
right there on
We're
that.
going to read some embarrassing.
Yeah, so what did they say to you to get you here? I'm just curious.
That he needed somebody to sit in the meeting. I kind of had an idea of this.
You were wondering, huh?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing going to sit in the meeting? I gotta sit there and watch somebody or see what's going on, or you gotta be, enforce something, right? That's usually what you do.
Yeah, well, this, yeah,
Well, congratulations.
thank you.
There's a little write-up here that others have written up about you. And it says, I would like to nominate Detective Jeff Robinson for Utah County Employee of the Month. Detective Robinson exemplifies what is expected of a Utah County employee. He is committed and dedicated to serving the citizens of Utah County. His efforts in law enforcement make our community a safer place, along with representing himself and the county in a positive light. Detective Robinson has been assigned to the Investigation Division since 2015. And he has shown that he is a hardworking, self-motivated, and well-rounded detective. He has proven himself capable of investigating major criminal investigations. These cases includes homicides, death investigations, aggravated assaults, burglaries, fraud, and theft. The following cases are only a small portion of what Detective Robinson has accomplished over the last year. These cases highlight Detective Robinson's professionalism and his attention to detail. And it continues to go on talking about the good things that you do, but we wanted to make sure and highlight you as the Employee of the Month today, this month, and your picture will be up there for some time. And so we'd like to just congratulate you on that, give you this little plaque, and also some little goodies that go along with it, and thank you for your service. Hold that like that. I'll take a picture. Thank you. And you got an opportunity to say something if you'd like to.
You can speak all you want about Bishop.
I think I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will say that I may be recognized, but in the investigation division as a whole, if we're a team, and all the big cases that were mentioned, it's not just me. I just happened to be the one that was assigned to it, and we worked it. But our whole team works well together, and I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Knudsen. He's a lieutenant over investigations, and he, through his example, these cases are possible. And it's easy to shine when you have good leadership. So,
See, Bishop's a
Thank
good
you.
guy.
Well, thank you. That's the reason why you're the Employee of the Month. You do a great job, and you recognize the teamwork there. Okay, so now we'll go on to our agenda. We have 17, excuse me. We have 17 items on consent. And I only need, well, let's see. And so number 8 on consent is a little confusing. I'm not sure if we need to talk about this one or if we need to strike this issue.
It sounds like it's taken care of.
So is this one, I know there was some conversation that's going back and forth, but I can't remember how it wound up. Do we need to strike it, or do we need to hold it?
As far as I know, it's still going forward.
Right, we just didn't think it needed commission approval.
Oh,
Yeah, that
we-
was-
We were told it did. So it's a
does?
contract.
So
And-
let's hold that one then. We'll hold,
Well, it's this weekend, so,
yeah, let's hold it for just discussion.
okay,
Yeah.
not striking, okay.
We'll make sure we get
Yeah.
the wording correct. I think
All right,
there's a
thank
few
you.
things on there that are a little bit off. And then number 11, I believe we need to strike this one.
Yeah, go ahead and strike it. We
Okay.
received an amendment from them.
Okay.
We'll put that on.
So if that's fine with the other commissioners, if we go ahead and strike that one on consent. And then if we can hold 12, 13, and 14 for discussion,
I have number 10.
number 10 as well, okay? Number 10. And then number 17 does not have any documents, so I'd move that we strike that one on consent.
Yes.
Okay, we good there?
Yep, so far.
Okay. And then everything on regular will go to consent except for what we will pull off. And number 3, I'm proposing that we strike number 3 as we go through a countywide process. Talked with Richard about that. Where is Richard? Is he here? Or Pat? And I think you can concur with that. Is that correct?
At this point,
At this point, to strike it as we go through a countywide process, looking at number 3? Oh, Richard,
Yes.
yes,
you're the department head.
okay. Okay.
Mark only wants to make you happy, Richard.
And then I did not have any others
For discussion?
for discussion.
Okay.
Is there any others?
Nope.
Okay, so everything else will go on consent as, I think is as written, or as approved, as approved
Or adopted.
or adopted, which I think is the whole language, right? Adopt. What's the language you need on number
I don't
6?
see Paul Jones here to tell us which ones,
Your
if we had a
decision.
denial.
So number 6, do we have to
Number
say that
6
we
will have
were
to-
approving? So
Yes.
that one is approved
Yes, but
at,
put
on consent as,
and we'll-
on consent as approved?
Yeah.
I think everything else makes sense. Okay, and then we'll get to our closed meetings after. Okay, so the first one up is, that was strike. Strike, number 10. Commissioner.
I think you have number 8.
8, Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sheriff's.
Oh, that's right. I had, when you talk about our strike, and I assumed that we,
I think you ought to just approve that. Unless something's come up where this event has been changed.
No, I guess I'm not sure of the process. I mean, anything that's always been a contract where we are charging a fee that's been approved by the fee schedule, on the fee schedule from the commission, we were told it had to be a contract and that I can't sign it. If that's different, then I don't mind, but,
No, it should be approved on.
okay. By the
There's just some
commission.
confusion with everybody that kept calling and some of the emails that went back and forth, like, well, why are we, like, that was, I mean, when you say it like that, yes, obviously, we know that does, but that
Right.
was,
Yeah, they've requested for extra law enforcement presence at their motorcycle show, and that's, it's a contract for that purpose.
is there, so if we go through an approval process, because it says or ratify, so we're gonna go through the approval process where the commission chair signs it, or are we going through a ratifying process? Because I think that was,
it's not gonna be ratified if
No,
we approve it today.
sometimes these come up at the last minute. We
Right.
discuss it verbally with the commission, and we get an approval to move forward with it, and it becomes a ratification because they came to us and wanted something on Thursday, and we were able to do that, and the
Yeah.
next Tuesday, it becomes a ratification issue
Right.
because it was not approved pre-work.
yeah, I fully understand that. My concern was is that it said commission chair, and I don't remember ever ratifying or signing that document. So I think that was half the confusion.
I believe it was something with myself and the person.
That's why I say, there was
Okay.
enough confusion that we're like,
Yeah, it's not with what's going on.
Okay.
It was just that we had approved and or authorized or ratify or, you know.
I think they were
we want-
covering all the bases in case it didn't get done today, then it would be a ratification next week.
So it would be appropriate for us to say then we're approving, cross out the rest of it. Approving a supplemental law enforcement contract, and then the rest of the wording would cross out.
That's correct.
Okay, so if that could be in the motion, that'd be great.
and FYI, whoever your deputies are that are going to that event, they will not want to go the Springville Main Street because of their parade. During that time, they'll want to go
And
find
just
an
for-
alternate route.
And for clarification, that's the reason we are there, because Springville is all occupied with their city days.
Right.
And so they ran out of manpower, so they asked us to do this contract.
Okay,
I mean, I hope that parade's over by 11. That'd be nice for a change. So I'll move that we approve and authorize the signature of Commission Chair as stated in number 8.
Second?
okay, I've got a motion and a second. to approve, as stated in number 8 on the regular, on the, are we consent agenda? Consent agenda, all in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Okay, now to number 10.
Okay, I just had a couple questions on this particular one. So maybe just go ahead and, just for general, summarize the purpose of this particular plan and what it's to accomplish.
The state gives us beer tax funding, and between the health department and myself, we have split up those funds, but we don't submit the plan with the dollar amount, because we don't know the dollar amount until December. So it's just, what we have indicated are possible areas of where we will spend the monies.
Okay, and as I was looking through here, it looks like one of them that I was particularly curious about was the canine purchases and training. It just seemed like,
If there's a
what does
time
it?
that we lose a dog and we need another dog and we don't have funding, we can use that as funding. But it's mainly used for overtime, alcohol shifts and things like that.
So for like
so-
increased DUIs and
Yeah,
different things
Yeah,
like
so
that?
that's the main purpose, but at times if we are in need of a canine because we lost one to health or whatever, then we will use that as funding.
And it falls within, that particular use falls within the parameters of this?
Yes, because that's their application, we just check mark each box we want, so.
Although the PDF on our iPads never shows the actual marks. So
So-
Yeah, and that was part of the problem. It was, were all
It's just a
dotted.
fill-in, basically, from the state, and those are the areas, you know, with Heather Lewis, she also indicates which ones she wants as well, so.
I only had a question on the DUI shifts. Last year, a week ago last year, we did the Get a Ride with a Cop with the Sticker campaign as part of this program, and I'm wondering how come we didn't do that again this year? or-
That's a different program, that's separate from the beer
Okay.
tax funding,
Okay.
so.
Okay, yeah, that, it was just kind of a red flag. I just kind of went, how does a dog help with decreasing alcohol consumption?
That's what they allow, so,
And so I just wanted
You
to
don't
make sure
feel
we
the
were
bite
okay
of the
with
dog as well as.
it. So,
Richard Nance, Utah County Drug and Alcohol. This is just kind of how we've done it historically. We've indicated that we're going to use it prevention, law enforcement, confinement. But over the last several years, the state's required us to increase how much of our federal block grant dollars we apply toward prevention, and we've had a hard time spending all the money out. So to put more money on prevention, it kind of compounds the problem. We like to spend everything we get. If you look on the plan on
We know that.
number just keep sitting there. On number 2, we can use it for treatment, and two of the things that we would like to add to, onto the plan, if it's okay with D-Lynn at this point, is jail-based treatment under number 2, and medication for alcohol or substance use dependency on number 2. This gives us some flexibility on if we can't spend it all on treatment, prevention, we could use it to fund treatment for the Out Plus program in the jail, and also for medications for people maybe coming out of the jail to prevent them from having an accidental overdose and dying in a week or two after they're released. So, I know it's due the 16th, we still got a couple of weeks. Would you be okay if we added that to it? So
Okay.
I'd make that request of you to tick that box and those two boxes
and
on.
I guess maybe that's part of my confusion, was on my screen, it looks like all of those things are checked.
Yeah, they're all
None of
black.
them are
But-
Well,
'cause, like,
none of
it's
them are
all-
checked. They're all bullet
But
points.
yeah, they're like all
If they're
black
bullet
and-
points, that's actually not part of it. If there's an X in front of it, then it's selected on the PDF. So like number 3, when you see the X right before canine purchase and training, but then you see the bullet point between alcohol and or substance abuse training, that's not one of the boxes checked. If I remember these right.
Okay, because it was just really hard to
So in other
read
words,
as
the
far as
jail-based
what
treatment
was
and
in
medication
what wasn't.
on number 2 will change from bullet points to X's.
Yeah, and like Dylan says, we don't know how much money we're gonna get, so that just gives us some flexibility on.
So the Prime for Life program on prevention, is that you? Or is
Yes.
life skills training also you?
Yes.
Yes.
So that would allow something to happen underneath treatment, because right now it looks like
Nothing's under
nothing's checked
treatment.
off.
Okay,
So how come we don't do the communities care? I know that's a program that Pat's involved with and we do.
It's on there. That's checked too. You
It's
just
not.
can't see it. Yeah, it is.
okay.
Based on the system I just described to you. So if I show you, and my screen's big enough for you to see, there's an X Prime for Life, there's an X Life Skills Training, but there's a bullet point Communities Care, meaning it hasn't been selected.
Yeah, that's, we've got just Prime for Life and Life Skills.
Right, that was my question. How come we don't do the Communities of Care? I know that that's a I mean, if we're looking for potential options for, in case we need to spend the money, I know that's a program we do. That would be my question. That's a
Yeah.
program I'm familiar with, is the only reason I say.
Yeah, if we need the funding to support communities of care activities, that would be great, since it's allowed.
Okay?
So if you want to check that one too, I'm fine with that if the sheriff is.
Okay?
Everybody into the pool.
Don't say that, because Richard Nelson will start checking boxes. He needs money too.
Okay,
All right, thank
all
you.
right, thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you. All right, I will make sure I'm on the right number here. I will move that we approve the commission chair to sign the FY 2018 beer tax plan with the noted additions for treatment, et cetera,
And the prevention.
and prevention.
Okay, second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve and authorize, as stated, number 10 with the stipulations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any, oh, nope, 3-0, there we go. All right, maybe if we can talk about 12, 13, and 14 all together, since they are all similar. Number 12 talks about the bookmobile services from the state. And then 13 and 14,
Say the reverb, you can tell was way high.
and
Still good.
13 and 14 are with the individual cities and the way, the amounts of money that they pay to us to have those services there. Some of my questions, which are questions from the past as well, come in that there have been cities that receive these services that don't pay, which is always concerning to me. And then 13 and 14, we actually do not have any signed agreements with them as of yet, and I think we've always been a little bit hesitant to go forward with stuff if we don't have signed agreements. So I just wanted to have maybe a discussion on what we should do overall. I mean, we feel comfortable going forward and signing an agreement with the state, which we haven't got our agreement signed yet, is one of the big questions. Then what do we do with the others? I think
I don't think
the
we.
one is $13,200, and the other one, Mapleton's like $1,000. Mapleton uses it as their city library.
They also house
They
and store
house it.
everything.
They house the bookmobile itself, which is part of their contribution.
But we don't have signed agreements from them?
We have the agreements to be approved by us. They have been sent to the cities. We have made contact with each of those two cities. They've confirmed orally that they want to proceed as they have in the past. But we don't have the signed document back.
Well, why would we approve the state one without knowing if we got the city ones?
That's the question.
Well, then
That's one of the
It's
questions.
happened in the past.
I know,
Because
but-
of the timing, but that's up to you.
In the past, there may have been a disagreement with what was said. I don't think that exists anymore.
Plus the other cities that
See, what I would say then is,
stop at.
I would be okay striking 12 and approving 13 and 14 to see where the cities come at, while we still have the broader discussion if we want to proceed that way. I don't know.
Are these time sensitive in any manner?
The agreement with the city, the effective date is 1st of July. They have requested that it be signed back to them, I think, by the 15th of June. But we can let them know that it's in the works, if you'd like.
The state?
Up to you.
What are the ramifications if we don't do this with the state?
The bookmobile will be canceled for this year.
I couldn't hear you, Dave.
Pardon me?
What were the ramifications? I couldn't hear you.
There wouldn't be no bookmobile service.
What would happen to all the books that Mapleton City's storing?
That I don't know.
Who owns them?
I know Alpine City relies on this as their library.
And so does Mapleton.
Yeah.
And unincorporated. I know this,
Incorporated.
this stops
Right.
the unincorporated. Do we have reports historically on how much this services is used?
We do, last year, they gave us some detailed reports.
Yeah, we've actually had it for the last 2 years.
If you want those again this year, I could let them know that, but
Yeah.
they did provide detailed reports last year of usage and circulation.
Here's my concern, and it's always been, and every year we talk about this, is that the unincorporated areas, I can see us, that's the reason why we have the bookmobile set up. And then those cities who maybe don't have a library, who want to pay to have that service come.
That's fine.
I get that.
That's the
What I-
ones that don't
The
pay.
ones that don't pay, that still get the service, that to me is problematic. And I don't understand that part of it at all.
See, and that was my problem, is in the detailed report that the state gave us, the nice ladies that helped run that said, well, we've done the math and this is the way that makes the most sense, and they weren't open to negotiation. I'm like, wasn't working for me either. But, yeah, I just don't know why any city should get the benefit. Again, the I agree with exactly what was said, so how do we?
The town of Vineyard has also indicated they would like some services, and so the intent is to sit down with the bookmobile staff and determine how to schedule those in, and so there probably will be an additional participation by Vineyard, and they've indicated a willingness to pay for that service, so that's something we're gonna work on within the next month. or
Pretty
6
sure there was
months.
something on our bad debts from a city that indicated they were gonna pay too, and that didn't happen, so.
With regard to Vineyard, the service won't start with them until we have an agreement in
Okay,
place.
well, I still don't know how we proceed with the state until we get signed interlocals from the cities.
Up to you.
Well, that would be my wish, is that we strike 12, bring it back when we get it signed, and I'm okay moving forward with 13 and 14 and
Well, and also looking at what the
14 for the,
service is.
yes, yes. That's why I would strike 12, because there needs to be some modification, in my opinion. Especially if Vineyard's coming on, we know that we have been contractually partnered with them in a couple other areas, and don't think that that would be a problem to move that along fairly quickly with them.
Yeah, I don't know that that can be a part of the initial agreement, because the bookmobile staff's indicated that they won't be able to work that in until about a month from now, so until we know
Well, what are
what
they
that
gonna do
service
if we
will
don't
be,
approve their contract? They'll have plenty of time to work it in.
just communicating what they've said.
So without a signed agreement with the state, is it problematic moving forward with the cities?
Well, it shouldn't be, as we're getting everything lined up.
No, unless you're not going to do the agreement. Obviously, when we have the agreement with the cities, we have an obligation to move forward with the state, because we're committing to provide that service to those cities through that state contract.
Right, which is why I wanna quit the state contract, because if the cities don't pay, there should be no stop.
Well, the schedule of those stops could still be reviewed.
That's what they told me last year, and when I asked them, they said, well, this is the way it makes the most sense financially, so. So the review was met with everything I've ever dealt with state approval, and that is, yeah, we can pretend to have a conversation, but we're not really doing anything about it.
So why is it not built into the contract that they go to the cities who are contracted with us in unincorporated county? With the state contract?
I'd be glad to invite the
I mean,
state.
if that's the hangup,
Should
which
be.
it would make sense that we would just simply make sure in the verbiage in our contract with the state that we are providing services to the cities we have interlocal agreements with in unincorporated county.
We could modify that state agreement if you would like.
That would be my preference, would be if that's the concern, which is what I'm sensing here, and I think it's a legitimate concern, would be to modify the agreement with the state to make sure that the services are being provided to municipalities who are contracted to the county and unincorporated county.
And no one else, is that what you mean?
And no one else, right?
We'll follow up on that.
Okay, then do you want us to strike all three or continue all three, or while we
Well-
work on that? What would be
The two interlocal agreements,
still,
if you want to wait on those, we can wait because they would not need to be approved until we have in place the other one also. They have both been sent to the cities for their approval. So we can put all three back on at a later date if you would like.
well, because I mean, I don't want Mapleton or Alpine to think that we're not willing to work with them. We are. We just don't think that they should pay and everybody else get a benefit that they don't pay.
Well, let's just strike or continue all three for a couple of weeks. Just strike them if you'd like, the three of them, and we can put them back on once we have the interlocals back from the cities.
Okay, motion to strike 12, 13, and 14 from the agenda.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to strike 12, 13, and 14 from the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, we already struck 17 is gone. And is that it? We're
That's
done?
Mhm.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so for our closed meetings.
We have our work session?
Yeah, we'll have that.
Yeah. So for our closed meetings, we'll need number 8, 9, and 11 are the ones that I received.
Motion to strike 10 from the agenda.
Second?
We had a motion and a second to strike number 10 from the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
I move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, water rights, or water shares for today's date of this location, following completion of regular agenda and work session agenda items.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location as stated in number 8 on the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0.
Move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss the sale of real property, water rights, or water shares previously publicly noticed for sale for today's date of this location, following completion of regular agenda and work session agenda items.
Second?
We've got a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location as stated in number 9 on the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0.
Move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation for today's date of this location, following completion of regular agenda and work session agenda items.
Second?
We've got a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location as stated in number 11 on the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Okay. Now we have one work session item. It's to review Code Chapter 11. I believe Peggy's doing that.
Peggy Kelsey from Community Development. The state legislature, as I'm sure you're aware, passed Senate Bill 81, and that went into effect on May 7th, I believe. And
Ninth, I think
because
it's
of that,
9th, I believe, but.
the 9th, oh yes,
Doesn't
the
matter.
9th.
7th, 9th.
7th, the Tuesday, the second Tuesday after the whatever.
Mhm.
Because of this Senate bill, we do need to make some changes to our licensing code and the Utah County Code. And essentially, the Senate bill, just as a quick overview for county, what the Senate bill did was, the first thing is it made all licensing fees regulatory. Utah County's fees have been regulatory since 2005, so we're already set up with that. The next thing that it did, it made it so you could only require a license or a permit, or, I'm sorry, that it would be exempt to require a license or a permit if it's a business that's run only occasionally and by an individual who is under 18 years of age. We already had language in our code that was similar to that. I did modify that a little bit so it would match the bill a little bit closer. The third thing that it did is it made it so we could not charge a licensing fee for home occupations. So basically, if you just have an office, there's nothing really going on outside. They didn't really define it, so we have to use our own definition, our own interpretation. I would say if you did not have visiting clientele coming to your home, you would not be able to charge a fee for that. Quite a few years ago, we had talked about home occupations and why we even license them at all, because it's really something that's going on within the home that we don't even know that's going on. At that time, we just chose to keep licensing them, but now at this point in time, after looking at this and reviewing, my recommendation would be that we just, for home occupations, that we just exempt them from needing a business license. So essentially, those are the two items.
So on
that
your
we're making
thing is
changes to.
13, because I can tell it's highlighted on our agenda.
Right.
Is that an additional add then?
It's an additional add to the exemptions
Okay.
of requiring a business license.
Okay.
And I will say that I belong to an association with all the other business licensing officials of the state of Utah. And some still haven't decided what they're doing. Some are just not going to charge a fee but continue licensing. And others, such as Sandy, they're just not going to license a fee. So we're kind of, right now, we're all over the place. There's not a real consensus, but my renewals are due the 1st of July, and so I need to kind of get going on something.
How many are we talking about?
We are talking about, we're talking about approximately 105 licenses, and there's an additional 8 that I have to kind of look at a little bit closer and kind of see what category they're going to go into. It will cost us about a little over $6,000 in lost revenue per year.
It's not very much.
And so what is that line that you're looking at in the way of saying this one fits underneath that or not?
Right now, I think personally, after looking at it, I was, if you have visiting clientele, so if you have a hair salon, if you have a dance studio, those are the ones that we would continue to license and charge a fee. If it's just a home occupation, basically, if you don't know that it's going on in the home, then those we would not.
So
Offices,
the only reason I question the second one, the dance studio, number 11 says a child daycare business which is operated within a residence that is not required by the state of Utah to obtain a state of Utah child care license or certificate. So in other words, you're not going to license those.
that's right, but that's only 3. They can have up to 3 without not needing a state license, and then also if it's like a grandmother watching grandchildren, that's not required. So the impact there is much, much less than
Require
if
that
you.
before?
Huh?
Did we require that before?
Right.
Was it
On the fourth
Really?
child, the state of Utah requires a state
a
license.
grandma watching the grandchildren?
That's kind of a gray area, I guess. If you had 5 grandchildren, then you would not.
That's funny.
I'll bet that's violated a lot.
So on the visiting clientele,
Uh-huh.
I would almost have an inclination myself to look at impact. If you've got one person showing up to your house maybe a day or something like that, I don't think that would impact the community outside of a neighbor swinging by.
True.
And so I would probably be inclined to look there and see if there wouldn't be a number that would make sense, like 3 or 4 or 5, to where it would become, burdensome on the community as a whole, rather than just saying one at all. My personal preference there would be to try and look at that, to work within the spirit of that law and say, if you're running a home business or something and you've got 1, maybe 2 people coming a day, it's really not disrupting the flow of a neighborhood. We would probably not have an issue with that. That would be my personal.
What do we
thoughts
charge
on
for a licensing fee on those?
Renewal fees are $50 a year.
Okay. What do the cities charge? Do we have any idea?
Do you know they're all over the place? Some are probably as low as $35, some are as high as $100. Again, in 2004, I went through a big fee study, and actually, believe it or not, for home occupations, it does cost me more than $50 a year to license them because of all your overhead and everything that you're paying for. But we felt like because it was a home occupation and we could categorize them, we actually dropped that fee to $50 a year. So, but I also know that that's one of the concerns statewide, that some cities were maybe charging too much. We've never been challenged with our fees.
Okay.
When you do that, have we also required the fire inspector to go out there and go through and,
For home occupations with visiting clientele, yes, the fire marshal and I both do a home site inspection.
so there's a cost there to the county too, in the sense of
Yeah,
time and
a little
personnel
bit
and
more,
everything else?
right, yes.
Hmm.
Yes, if you have visiting clientele coming to your home, the fire marshal does need to go in, and make sure that you've got it appropriately set up.
Okay, so there's something that we have to do on this eventually, right? Or something that you're gonna do that will will
Right,
probably come
right.
onto our agenda for approval?
Yes, I'd like to try and get something on next Tuesday for you if, and this is, this is your code, so you can tell me exactly what you would like to see, and I can make those changes and try and get that on for next Tuesday. I just need to start generating the renewals and get them out as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see the language on that probably sooner than later. Be a lot easier to read through it and see where we're at.
Okay, would you like me to put a number at how many visiting clientele they can have?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, I think we should put it on there as, proposals of
Okay.
what,
Yeah, what passes is a different.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I will get something ready and try and get it on for next Tuesday, and then you guys can, make a decision at that point in time.
okay.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Peggy. All right, now we're to public comment. Any public comments?
I've never done this before, never been here, and don't know.
Just state your name and,
I'm Judy Salazar.
Okay.
You've probably heard of me. I spoke with someone in your office last week, and he suggested that I come and said that I could speak up at this time.
yes,
So I know that you considered, I live right next to the Murdoch Trail Extension, as you're aware probably, and I believe you considered approving a fence to buffer my property last week, and it was denied. And I came to discuss some information that either you weren't aware of or you didn't consider at that time. I contacted the homeowner that lived there when all of this was beginning, and he sent me an email. It's brief, I just wanted to read it. He said, sorry to hear you're having problems. Yes, the trail representatives promised they would work with us on almost any kind of buffer between the trail and the property. We discussed hedges, trees, raising a berm, and fences. A wrought iron fence was specifically mentioned. They mentioned that within reason, they were willing to do almost anything we desired to buffer the property. We wanted to protect our privacy and the general safety of all, and they promised they would work with us to accomplish that. And then he suggested I contact the HOA president, Scott Finlayson, who is a police officer with Salt Lake City, and he sent me this email. To whom it may concern, I'm writing you in behalf of Judy Salazar. Apparently there is some miscommunication about a fence that was to be installed along her home in the Murdoch County Canal Trail. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Scott Finlayson. I was the HOA president of Thanksgiving Village HOA at the time the land deal was negotiated between the Thanksgiving Village HOA and Utah County. I was the one representing the Thanksgiving Village HOA. One of the concerns that was first addressed in the negotiation was the impact the proposed trail would have on the two homes next to the trail. The most impacted home was Judy Salazar's home. Utah County assured me that if the HOA sold the land to them for the trail, they would put a barrier between the homes. In the meeting, a wrought iron fence was discussed, and Utah County told me and other HOA board members they would do whatever the homeowner wanted to minimize the impact of the trail on the home's property. I'm disappointed to hear that Utah County is backing out of their obligation and commitment to the homeowners that were impacted by the trail. Utah County needs to honor the commitment they made to these homeowners and complete the project by putting in the fence they promised. And then he says, if you have any questions, please contact me. So I would request that you abide by the original agreement and approve the installation of that fence.
Okay. This is a public comment time in which you just make a comment to us. Could I break from that just a little bit?
Sure.
And ask some questions, if you're okay with that? First off, I have never seen an agreement, so I'm not sure what agreement you're referring to.
I'm just referring to the agreement that the HOA president, I had 3 HOA board members contact me saying that they were in on this, and in the sale of the property, it was agreed that Utah County would put in a buffer of the homeowner's choosing.
Yeah.
So it was contractually agreed to in the sale.
I don't know what I wasn't here, I lived in Texas at that time, but I
And
was
in
told
fact,
that
yeah.
it was agreed to, yes.
Just for your information, I've been here 5 months, so I wasn't there either. And so
I don't think
just-
any of us were there. That's the
And
that's
that's
the
part of the
concern.
question, is we're just trying to make sure that there was
Right.
If there was an
some
agreement,
type of contractual
that
agreement,
was,
then we have an
you know,
obligation.
written, I don't think any of us up here would disagree with that. I think the problem is that we don't see I have not seen any agreement besides people saying that there was an agreement, or possibly not, and others saying there wasn't an agreement, and then there was, and it keeps going back and forth, and so it's really confusing for us, because with a contract, that's the reason why we write it down, because it makes for long memory. And at
I've
this point,
learned
we
that.
don't.
There were a lot of things that were told me that I didn't get in writing,
Yeah.
and I've learned that it's really important. Frank Gonzalez is the current HOA president, and he said that he would try to be here. He was planning to come to this meeting. I spoke with someone sitting next to me. He said, just let me know what time you're due to speak. She told me she thought the meeting would go until about 11, so I told him it would
It
be
usually
about
does,
11
but-
o'clock. And he said he was trying to look back through minutes of the meetings way back when to see if he could get that.
Yeah. If there's an agreement in place that you can find, we'll honor it. I don't think there's any doubt about agreements that are in place.
Well, I think Richard was in on that.
Well, so I can tell you why, one of the other things that was concerning to me is the placement of the fence. There's a difference between a barrier and where the fence was, and how it was relayed to me is that you would like the fence at the edge of the trail where it is, which is 10 feet beyond your property line. I'm never going to vote unless it's put on your property line. So any contractual agreement would be put on your property line, and that would therefore create an additional buffer.
It would be put on my property line, and it's not 10 feet. There's not even
Well,
10 feet
whatever
between my
it is.
property line and the trail. In some places, it's more like 3 or 4 feet.
Just on the contract with the HOA, we have a copy of that agreement with the HOA when we bought it. We can pull that out and review it. I'm not aware of it being
Yeah,
in
get
there,
us a
but
copy, please.
I'll find it and take a look at that.
Do you recall that conversation about
I know we had some conversations about buffers being like a hedge or a pergola type thing. I don't know what you call it when it's over a trail, but that type of a structure. And what I'm remembering is that the golf course didn't want us to put up that type of a barrier, and I'm going from memory, so take it for what it's worth, but I recall a conversation with Mr. Flake, who is the previous property owner where Judy lives, that they didn't want to have the view of the golf course blocked by something that would be like a hedge or that type of thing. So I don't know on the fence. I will go back and look through my notes on it from the HOA discussions, but I don't recall it being in there, but we'll look into that.
Thanksgiving Point has they're fine with all that. I've had discussions with Melanie Twitty at Bismarck, and she is fine with that. They don't have any problem with it. And I believe the reason that a more concrete thing wasn't included, that it did say a fence, a berm, bushes or whatever, was that it was to be the homeowner's choice because of the view. And the Flakes, I don't know if it was because of the trail going in, but they moved. So I am the one that got stuck with it.
And for my clarity of understanding, there's your property, then there is a section of Thanksgiving Point property before we come to the county trail.
I am purchasing that from Thanksgiving Point.
No, I thought it was all easement.
So it will be my property that goes up to the wall.
Yes, Commissioner, it is that way currently. As Ms. Salazar's represented, she has had the discussions with Thanksgiving Point to purchase that strip of ground. It varies in width depending on where you're at along there. But currently, her property is here. There's a small strip of Thanksgiving Point, and then the piece of property that the county owns where the trail is, and then back onto Thanksgiving Point.
And I guess, because part of that question is if your neighbor is Thanksgiving Point, why Thanksgiving Point wouldn't be the one installing it?
They want to sell their nuisance strip and be done with it.
They don't want to maintain that little strip. As I said, in some places, it's, very small. They would have to put in sprinklers, they would have to mow it.
I was referencing like the fence or the barrier, why, if your property is bordering them, they're your neighbor.
They don't have the incentive to buffer my home that I do. And my biggest thing is, if this was the HOA said that this was part of the deal in their agreement to sell the property to you, is that you would minimize the impact on the homes. So the property was sold, the trail was put in, and
Well, we hope we have it in writing then, if that's, yeah, we'll look through that. That
so
makes
the
sense.
testimony of the HOA people doesn't hold any bearing?
Well, I mean, it could, but in this case, what's in writing is usually what we agree to, and anything other than that is just subject to now a different agreement, which would have to be negotiated through.
So where do I proceed from here?
Well, we'll get that agreement. We'll look down through that. If we see that in writing where there was an agreement to that, then we'll fulfill it. If it's not, then we need to have more conversations.
And
what?
if they come up with HOA meeting minutes showing discussion and promises made?
That
And-
has no impact for me personally, because again, contractually, so for me, I look at it this way. It needs to be in writing, because quite honestly, I know I can get a group of friends together. There are people, I've been involved in places where all of a sudden I hear people say, well, yeah, this is what we thought, and this is what we thought, and all of a sudden the story, it grows and it grows and it grows. And so unless it's in writing for me, I'm a no.
But meetings from 2008?
HOA meetings have, I'm just telling you, me personally, HOA meetings have zero impact on me. A contract of sale, if all those things were discussed, it would have said something about a buffer. Now, if it says even a mention of a buffer or whatever, then what type of buffer, that's a conversation between us and you that I think we will have. But if it doesn't mention anything like that for me, then I'll let my vote from last week stand.
My concern is that what you will find in the contracts, and I will not be the one looking through to see what might be there. Obviously, Mr. Nielsen will. But my concern is that is just the legal documentation that says, this parcel of land, this amount of money, and it is not going to have all of the,
But see, for me, with what my job is I swore an oath to protect basically the taxpayer funds, and those legal documents are the ones that tell me what I'm obligated to spend and what I should spend and what I shouldn't spend. And so that for me, it's a very, very fine line. The fact that you're purchasing the property from Thanksgiving Point, to me, means then we're also moving the line. The original agreement would have been for a defined property, not for a redefined property line. So just because you're gonna buy the piece against the trail that Thanksgiving Point wants to move, that's adding additional cost to the county. To me, that's troublesome,
how is that adding cost to the county?
because if it varies in length, in width, then you're at,
I'm just asking for a trail along the wall, because the wall, in some places, it's about waist high to me, and it drops down to the concrete.
no, I understand that. What I'm saying is, if you take a piece of property, yours is roughly square, and if you're going to buy the extension of the rest of it, and somewhere it's 2 feet, some places it's 8, therefore it's not a straight line, you're adding fence length, linear foot, and how, you have to be. Otherwise, you'd be only buying a 2-foot strip. It's mathematically impossible to not be adding linear footage to a fence along the trail line.
The fence would always be the fence was always discussed going along the wall, not along the property line. And the wall stays the same, whether I own that. The only discussion with Thanksgiving Point was that they grant an easement for the fence or that it be purchased. The fence was always going to be along the wall. Larry Ellertson came out at Christmas. We had a meeting with Richard there, and because he wanted to see what it looked like, and he was of the opinion that they ought to do that. You have created a hazard for my home, and I believe a liability. I have 16 grandchildren, and if one of those goes running up the hill, boom, down onto the concrete, that's a liability to consider as well.
You know, I would like to take a look at the documents first, and then if you want to research and find minutes of meetings, maybe there was things implied. Nevertheless, I'm going to rely pretty heavily on on what's written in the contract language. But I'm sure that they probably talked about all kinds of different options, you know, with trees and bushes, and that, in that point, you know, I kind of take that for what it is. We're not saying one or the other, they're just kind of summarizing what they think should be done there. But let's take a look at it. Again, I'd like to see the written language first, and if there's nothing in there, maybe we can have a few, you know, some more
Okay.
conversations.
As I said, I have had a bunch of conversations starting back in August and September. And I hope that it's not the case that things are said, yes, we'll do that, and then when it comes right down to it, if it's not in writing, then you back out, because that's not a very honorable
Well,
way to do business.
So let me explain something that I think is really important. You heard a little bit about it if you were here at the very beginning of the meeting. This, in the commission, things get done with 2 commissioners, not with 1.
I understand that.
So one commissioner can come out and they can say whatever they wanted. They could promise you whatever.
Especially a week before they leave office.
I understand that. And he did tell me, I'll have to get somebody else to sign off on this. He did say that.
And so that's the process that we work through, and maybe understanding that process is important to, you know what can be done and what would be done.
Okay.
There's 2 commissioners that are needed.
So who is the one, it was Larry before that was overseeing this project? Which one of you took that on?
Overseeing I'm the portfolio commissioner with Public
Richard.
Works. Yes.
Okay.
And the first phone call you made to the office,
I
that I can
remember
recall,
meeting
you
with
came
him.
and met with me, and I
you
moved
pulled
really
Larry
quickly,
in.
and we pulled Larry in, and then we met with Richard, and then I got all the details, and that's when Larry kind of just started meeting with you, so.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Is that it then?
Thank you.
So I'll hear from Richard or from
Yeah.
somebody?
Yes.
Yes, from Richard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll move into our closed meetings.
So I let Dave Church know this.